Welcome to Teaching and Reaching. We are going to be talking about teaching in the online classroom while still reaching the students' 7 different learning styles. We're going to talk about what those styles are and how to deliver them in the online classroom today. So I am really excited to be here. I have spent thousands of hours coaching homeschool groups, hundreds of hours teaching in homeschool groups. In fact, the first time I started teaching in 1999, and I've been doing it ever since. Smaller youth groups, older youth groups, larger youth groups, a lot of different styles and dynamics and different classes, and I love it. I love it. So I'm here today to share some of my experience, to share some of my knowledge, and share some of the stuff I've been studying so that hopefully it will help you as you make this transition to online classes in the chaos that we're in right now. So we're going to have a lot of fun with this. We're going to be going over 5 different things. We're going to talk about how to prepare for your class, first of all. Then we're going to be talking about vision casting inside of your class and how often and how to do that. We are going to be talking about agendas and how important they are to your class, as well as making sure that you have a very powerful close. And then we're going to be talking about those 7 learning styles and how to address each one of them within an online classroom. You're going to get a cheat sheet at the end, and you're also going to get a link that goes to Personality Max, which is just a fun, free tool that you can use that might kind of get you on this path a little faster. Okay, so let's move right into number 1. We're going to talk about preparing. So I wouldn't bring this up because I don't want to add more to your plate. I know you're already preparing for your class, you're preparing the lecture, you're preparing activities, but this is a different kind of preparing that we're going to be talking about. It's a quick 5 to 10 minute prep that's going to have so much impact on your class that you're going to wish you did it every single time. So I only am going to give you guys extra work if I know that the impact far outweighs the amount of work that it's going to take to put into it. And doing this kind of prep work is one of those things. I want you, number 1, main goal. What is your main goal of the class? I know you have all this information you want to share, and I know you have activities that you want to do within the class, and those things are really, really important. But if you don't choose a main goal before you start class of the one thing you want these kids to get and to understand and know how you're going to deliver it, then you're going to miss the boat with all of this hard work that you've put into the lecture and the knowledge and the activities that are going to happen, okay? So choose your one main goal. I really want my students to get this, okay? And one of the ways to do that is to really understand who your audience is first. Now, I know you're familiar with these students, and if you're doing this in a homeschool group, you are probably pretty aware of their families and what that looks like and who their siblings are and who their parents are and all kinds of things like that. But as it pertains specifically to the 7 learning styles, do you know what learning styles each individual student are? Okay, so that's just one thing. Like, just get to know them individually. How do they learn? What are their stumbling blocks? What are their roadblocks? What's hard for them? What's easy for them as it pertains to the classroom? Knowing these things will really help you nail down your goal and how you're going to get to that goal. Okay, so you want to know who your audience is, and then ask yourself this question. If I've got my main goal, what do I want them to really know? What do I want them to really feel about that knowledge? Do I want to evoke some emotion? Do I want to, a heart on fire comes from, and a brain on fire comes from emotion and engagement coming with the actual material. So make sure you know what you want them to feel so that you can get that into your class. And then what do you want them to do? I also want them to write a paper or read a book or do a math worksheet or whatever it is that the homework is for the class. And that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, what do you want them to do with the information, the knowledge that they're learning from writing papers, from reading books, from doing worksheets, from listening to the lecture and engaging in the activity? What's the ultimate outcome you want from all of this stuff? This all is happening because of something you want them to change or do or have impact in them or their world. Okay, so think through those questions really quickly. Okay, so part B to this is managing expectations and rules within the class. And these need to be established at the very beginning of class if possible. And if you didn't establish it at the very beginning of class, it's not too late. Do it in the next class, okay? The next one you jump into. So let's do a little bit of prep work. Here's what I want you, and if you have a co-mentor, I want you two to discuss these things together. This should be a team effort, okay? So how do you want to handle phones in the classroom? How did you handle them in the live classroom? How do you want to handle them in the online classroom? If it was me, I would ask the students to put their phone in another room, okay? And I know you can't see or manage what's actually happening with the phone, but establishing the expectation is going to at least tell them what the standard is, okay? So make sure that you've created a standard, and then they'll know whether or not they want to apply themselves to that standard, okay? Now, the next thing is we're going to talk about audio within the online classroom. Now, most of your classrooms, if you're the host, you should be setting it up probably so that everyone is muted when they enter. In this arena that we're dealing with, an online homeschool classroom, you probably have these kids, most of them are going to have siblings and parents and stuff. Like, it's a household, right? And it's going to be going on behind them. So you want them to understand that, and understand that for the most part, you want them muted unless they're actually talking. You want them to engage. So when it's their turn to talk, you want them to unmute themselves. But unless that's what's going on, you need to have them muted. And because most of these kids, hopefully, the computer that they're using is probably out in the open, like in the kitchen or the living room, where the internet can be monitored, right? So there's going to be a lot happening. Okay, also their video camera. If you're anything like me, I expect my students to have their video cameras on during the classroom. If they don't have a video camera attached to a laptop, or they don't have a webcam or whatever, then I would rather see them on a smartphone or a tablet that does have a camera. I expect everyone to have a camera. I want to see that when I ask them to take notes, they're writing, okay? I want to see that they have wrinkle lines when I'm giving a lecture, and they're like concerned because they have a question and they're looking like this, and I can ask them individually, tell me what questions you have right now. What are you thinking right now? If somebody's super excited and they're like, they just got it. I want to know that too. I want to know that they got it. And I might even ask them to share, depending upon who the student is. So I want to see those kind of reactions when I am teaching online. Cameras are a must for me. Okay, also chat. You're going to want to establish what's going to happen and what's okay in the chat room. If you're in a Zoom room, there's other online formats, but Zoom is what I'm going to use. I'm most familiar with that. In a Zoom room, you can set, the host can set it to chat with everyone only, chat privately only, or be able to chat with everyone or privately, which enables them, they just have a little drop-down menu, they click on it, and they can say who they want to send that particular message to. So you can decide what that's going to look like. There's going to be times when you're going to want to use the chat for activities within the classroom, and you might need, if this is a new experience for your students, you might need your co-mentor or somebody to monitor what's happening in the chat, so that because if they're sending a question in through the chat, you're going to want to see that. And I don't know about you, but when I'm in the middle of teaching online, it's very difficult for me to manage the chat at the same time. It disrupts my flow and stuff. So I usually have somebody who's watching that for me, and when it's an appropriate time, they can jump in and say, hey, there's a couple of questions, let me read them to you. Okay, so that works really well to do that kind of thing. And that person can also tell the kids to stop messing around in the chat room, and to engage in class if that's what's happening and they're losing focus. By the way, if they are losing focus, then you guys need to talk about that at the end of class. As a mentor or co-mentor, you need to analyze why, okay, and take ownership for that, and see how you can fix your teaching style or how you can engage more students, okay? You want to set the standard for how you want them to engage in class. What is that going to look like? What are you going to ask them to do? And then you need to decide, and then you need to share that with your students, so that they can paint a picture for themselves of what being engaged in class looks like. For me, that means participating in discussion, having your video on, raising your hand, that kind of stuff. So you guys need to decide what that looks like, and then share that information with them. Okay, so let's move on to number 2, which is this inspirement vision casting. This is one of my favorite things. I love doing this with the students. So when I come into a class of youth, at the very beginning of class, first of all, I start on time, okay, regardless of who's not there. If they're not there, then they've missed out, and it's really sad, but I'm not going to wait for them, okay? So start on time and teach them that that's important. Your example is huge, so be there early in class and start right on the dot. And then what you're going to do is spend the first 5 to 7 minutes. For me, I have to time myself or have my co-mentor like give me the sign, right? But I want to share with my students why they should be there in class that day and why they should engage. And it's not that I'm giving them another lecture or that I'm explaining it to them. I'm giving them examples from my own life. I'm sharing with them what I learned that week. I'm sharing with them how something I learned I applied in my life and what it did for me, or how it impacted the world. Or anyway, if you are only studying the content for your class and you aren't studying outside of that, you're going to have a really hard time doing this. So always have another book. You don't have to read a whole nother book. You just have to read something, a few pages, a chapter that week. And if it's a really great book, you are going to find things in there that you're going to want to share with those kids, something that's exciting to you. If that's not working, then change your book, okay? Find something else that you're going to be able to share tidbits from. There's so much out there, and it's one of my favorite things of teaching a youth class is being able to share my experiences with them. It shows them how much I'm learning and growing on this path, and that I'm still on this path, and that it's valuable and that it's impacting the world. So even the fact that I am out there living my mission and teaching people and helping people in the homeschool group arena, I use examples from that all the time. I learned this and I helped somebody with this, and I'm so glad I could do that, and I'm so glad that there was this book or that there was this experience or, you know, whatever it is. And then you relate it to them. You turn it around at the very end and you say, you know, da 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 da, and maybe they'll have something they want to share as well. So it depends on how much time you have. Don't take too much time, just make sure it happens. You have to be giving them the why every single week, okay? Inspiring them every single week. It's so important. Okay, number 3 is an agenda. And you might think, oh, well, we don't need an agenda. It always goes the same. Well, if your class always goes the same, that's fine. But make sure everybody's aware of how it's supposed to go. So sit down with your co-mentor. You need very clear communication with your team. You are a team, the two of you. And decide what your agenda is going to look like, and then share it with your students at the very beginning of class. So just like I shared with you the 5 things that we were going to go through during this class, share with your students. You have a certain type of learner, it's the data learner, that if you are just jumping from one thing to the next, they are going to get lost in class, and it's difficult for them to catch up and move their brain from one thing to another thing. And it's not because they're not super smart, because they're super smart. It's just that's the way their brain works. So if you lay out a format for them at the very beginning, they will already know what to expect, and then there's no surprises, and they'll be ready for the next thing because they know what's coming, okay? So it's really important to communicate that with your students. Okay, number 4, just like we had a really inspiring start to class with that inspirement and that vision casting, that's like one bookend. The other bookend is the powerful close. So you want to make sure that you're closing your class with something exciting and motivating and powerful. Or you could just let it kind of drop off and end like that. Bye guys, glad you were here. I can't even do it. Sorry, there's too much energy in me. But you don't want them walking away from class with a deflated energy, okay? You want them to go away from class excited about what they've learned. You want them to want more. You want them to know they can do this. So whatever you're asking them to do, whatever homework, whatever activities, whatever presentations that they're in charge of or whatever, you want them to know that they can do this and that it's okay to have stumbling blocks and to come up against walls. And if they do, here's where you go for help. And part of what you're doing in those inspirements is showing how you've asked for help before, giving them a visual of the fact that everyone's not supposed to just know how to do it. Just because you give them an assignment for a paper doesn't mean they're just supposed to know how to do it. It means that you've given them an assignment, a challenge, something that's going to take some work and some effort, and they may have to go get some help. And so where do they go for it? Okay, it could be you, it could be a parent, it could be a writing mentor, whatever it is, okay? Leave them with information that they want to share. When somebody gets out of my class, I want them as an online class to go to their mom or their dad or a sibling or friend and go, guess what I just learned about Winston Churchill? It's so cool. Okay. If they're doing that, then I win. I did a good job. And let them know why this is worth it. Why the time they're going to spend this week preparing for next class is worth it for them, how it's going to change them, how it's going to help them grow. Get them excited about the growth. That's the important thing. Okay, so 7 learning and delivery styles. Let's go. You ready? Let's head that way. Okay, so we are going to go through these. As you can see, I've got a little piece of a checkoff chart here, and I am going to give you the link to the entire checkoff sheet at the end of this class, okay? So this is going to be divided up into the 7 different learning styles. Everybody uses different categories a little bit, so the 7 kinds of SMART versus like the multiple intelligences, they do the number 1 to 7 a little differently. They might define it a tiny bit differently. The title's a little bit different, but the ideas are going to be the same. Okay, so this is what we're going to use. Number 1 is visual learning or visual spatial. And these people are really good at they draw pictures in their heads. I'm really high in this one, by the way. They draw pictures in their heads of things, and they see things in pictures. Even when I'm memorizing something, I have a chalkboard in my head and I write it on the chalkboard. Okay, that's how visual I am. But it makes some things that I do, like when I sew and stuff like that, I can take a fabric and I can imagine in my head what it would look like as a jacket or what it would look like as a blanket. And I can see those different things both with this one fabric that I'm holding in my hand. So be aware that pictures in their head are really, really important to them. Okay, so here's some of the things that are really good for them. If you use diagrams, you can use those online and put a screenshot or a slide of diagrams up on the screen for them to see. If you use props, see this guy, this science teacher right here, he's using balloons. You can hold stuff up in front of the camera. You can even point the camera down at your desktop and show something that you're doing on the desktop. Those things are really great for the visual learner. Videos, workbooks actually are good for visual learners as well. Apps like Loki or Prezi or Kahoot, those are really fun for visual learners. Whenever you demonstrate something in an online classroom, a visual learner is going to catch on really quick. Storytelling works because, like I said, the visual learners will create pictures. It's like a video in their heads, and they'll see it all as if it's playing out. Meditation exercises are really good too. So if you have your students close their eyes and visualize something that you're asking them to visualize, that will really help them learn very well. Graphs and charts are good for them. Using a lot of color, GIFs are fun for them. Mind mapping is also something that works really well for them. And if you have them mind mapping on paper, you'll see a lot of these will flow into other categories as well. Mind mapping is also very good for kinesthetic because they're using their hands, and we'll talk about that more later. So as you check these off, I want you, before you start each class, to have a copy of this sheet for each and every class and check off, okay, I've done something that's going to help the visual learners. I've done something that's going to help the auditory learners. And make sure you have at least one check in each section, knowing that you have covered all 7 of those different types of learners in each and every class, okay? So you're going to want lots of copies of this. Okay, so let's move on to auditory learning and musical. So these are in one category. So any kind of tone fluctuation. When you go up and you go down, that's very helpful to an auditory learner. Volume is just as important. So I could talk really loud or I could talk really quiet. And any kind of fluctuation like that is going to catch the attention of your students. Okay, you can see. The other thing that's also going to catch their attention is a pause. Wow, it can be really powerful. Stories are going to be great for them, as are music. Now, I love using music in an online classroom. I use it in my live classroom as well. A class that we did a couple of years ago, we started that class every single week with a up and dancing movement, which was great for the kinesthetic learners and the auditory learners. It was a song that we chose. It was the theme song for our class for the year, or the semester, I guess it was. And we had a lot of fun up and dancing, and it got the energy moving early in the morning. And then we sat down and got to work. So you can use music like that, and you can have them up and dancing in front of the camera. Like you can, hey, everybody get up and dance. Like the music that we used, the song was called Brave. And it really went along with the theme of what we were doing for all of our writing and getting our voices heard. But you can get them to get up and dance in front of the camera. And if everybody's doing it, it's not that embarrassing, okay? But if just one kid's doing it, like that's gonna be horrific, right? So you've gotta go, okay, whoever is not dancing when I count to 3 is gonna give me 10 push-ups. 1, 2, 3, okay, so like, whoa, 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 we don't wanna do push-ups. So they'll get up and they'll do a little bit of this, you know, so don't do a whole song. It'd be too long, but you can do 30 seconds, 45 seconds, something like that. Music also behind, like I was talking about the meditation exercise earlier, or if you're going to stop and have them do a little bit of journaling, which we'll talk about later in another one, I would put soft Zen study music behind during that silent time. Okay, so don't let it go silent. It's going to be really difficult for the auditory learners if you actually just like set the timer and have silent time. You want music going on in the background. Okay, partner shares are great for auditory learners as they listen to somebody else share the things that they learned. And you guys can do that in breakout sessions on Zoom and online platforms, or you can actually have them now pick up your phone. Now I want you to have your phone, call your partner real quick. So they'll call each other really quickly, and you can set this up before class. So you've got it all ready to go as far as who's partners and that kind of thing. But listening to somebody else share their ahas from the lecture that was just given can be really great. And then they can share those with the group. So you're holding them accountable that they actually did what you asked them to do. And they only need like 2-3 minutes to do that. You share one with your partner and they share one back. That's it. Okay, group shares are just as great. So you can have them raise their hand and say, okay, I just want to know what everybody learned from what we just talked about. So I'm going to ask everybody to share one aha that they got. Having them either listening to a song or a jingle that goes along with the content for the class, or having them make something up using like rhyming or alliteration or acronyms, that's a great thing for a musical learner to do. Any kind of audio clips that you use in class works really well. Interviews. So if you wanted to have a guest speaker, you could do that just as well online as you could have done it in the live classroom. In fact, for some of the guest speakers, it's easier. So you can set up interviews in the middle of class and have that guest speaker come in at, you know, 1/2 the hour, so you can do your other stuff, and then they're going to jump into the classroom and you can ask them questions, or they can give a presentation or anything like that. Analogies are going to work really well as well. Okay, so moving on to number 3, the data learners. So worksheets work really well for this group, as do lists and anything that has steps. So just like we did at the very beginning of this class, we said these are the 5 things that we're going to share, and we're going through those. We're on number 5 right now, right? And those kind of lists and steps really help them keep track of where they are in the format, and they always want to know where they're at. So frameworks work really well. Like this framework right down here is very, very helpful. Any facts that you share, they're going to log those. Okay, so somebody like me, I don't even remember those. Like if you give me numbers, I don't remember them. But a data learner is going to grasp onto those numbers, and they're going to remember them really, really well. So you got to remember that you've got some of your students are, if you give them numbers and facts, it doesn't matter to them. It's going to go right over their head. Whereas if you give them experiences from somebody's personal journal, boy, an interpersonal person, that's what they're gonna really remember. And the data learners are gonna be exactly the opposite. So you really need to cover all 7 of these different learning styles if you want all of your kids to remember whatever it is that your main goal is, okay? So make sure that main goal is being delivered 7 different ways. Okay, any kind of results, studies, and statistics are going to be really important to data learners, as well as testimonials. Charts, equations, those are going to be really important to them too. Structured atmosphere, which we've alluded to already, is really important for them so that they can they feel like they're in the flow of what's happening. Giving them the big picture, right? So here's the main goal for class today. I want everybody to learn this, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to take this step, this step, this step, and this step, and that's how we're going to deliver it. Telling them that is great. Don't keep that to yourself. There's no reason for that to be a secret, right? Okay, any kind of sample problem, that is going to be really helpful for them, and memorization is great for this segment, okay? Really great for them. Okay, number 4, kinesthetic learners. Okay, now this is the tough one. Like, how do you do kinesthetic learners online? There's ways to do it. You have to get a little bit creative, but you can do it. So journaling is actually a really good one for kinesthetic learners. Anytime they pick up a pen or a pencil and they start writing, they are moving their body with the information. So that's huge. If you can write and look, and you're reading, so you're also doing visual at the same time, so you're doing kinesthetic and you're doing visual because you're seeing the words on the page. And if you are talking at the same time as you're writing, then that's huge. So if you see your students, if you go, okay, we're going to take 2 minutes of quiet time and we're going to write our ahas down, and you play the music in the background during that 2 minutes, they're writing, they're reading, they're listening to the music, and if you see their mouths moving while they're writing, they may just be a verbal or an audio. So they are actually reading out loud what they're writing while they're writing it. And it's going into their ears from their mouths. So that's catching 5. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 different learning styles just from that activity alone. Pretty cool. Okay. Stories are really good because they're seeing the movement. Like there's movement happening. It's not them actually moving, but they're understanding that there's movement happening in the story. Flashcards are really good because they're moving, and so they're keeping up with the movement. Real life examples, again, they're seeing movement happen. Personal share, where they're moving their body, whether it's to get on the phone and talk, or whether it's live in person and they're turning to somebody and they're sharing information with them. A variety of music works really well for them because they feel the music, and if you change it up and it's different types, it's like putting them in a different personal space because you're changing the environment around them by changing what they're hearing and what their energy of their body is feeling. Okay, breaks are really good for them. If you give them like a 5-minute break and you say, go outside, I want everybody, I'm going to set the timer for 5 or 7 minutes or whatever, 10, whatever you have time for, and tell them, I want you to go out and do something physical. So if it's walking around your house 3 times, or if it's shooting a basketball hoop, or if it's jumping on the trampoline, so just tell your mom that when she hears the dinger, you have 1 minute to get back in here. So it's really hard because you have to pull them back, but it's really good for the kinesthetic learners. And if you need to have a conversation with the parents beforehand and let them know what you're doing and that they might need your help at that point, make sure that somebody's there to help, you can do that. Okay, team experiences. So down here you see a picture of a team classroom in the classroom thing going on. But there's ways to do teams even online. Breakout sessions work really well for this. The chat box is helpful for this. So you can assign the kids into teams, and then you have to know, again, this is really where it's really good to have a co-mentor helping you. If the co-mentor knows who's on what team, whoever gets it into the chat box first gets a point for their team, and so you can have team question games and stuff like that going on even in an online class. Okay, note-taking for the same reason as journaling. And you can ask them to take notes and tell them that they need to, and that at the end of this 15-minute lecture or whatever it is, that you're going to ask them to put their notes up in front of the camera and show them to you. Okay, so that then you know that they've taken notes, you're holding them accountable for what you've asked them to do. Any one-on-one experiences, and also having a variety of personal space, which you might think, well, wait, I have no control over their personal space when they're on the other side of a screen. Like I've got the camera and the internet and a screen in between me and them. What am I supposed to do about that? But if you give them instructions before class, for instance, I want you to have access to 3 different chairs during class time. We're going to play a game. And then let's say at some certain point in between like a lecture and activity or something like that, you go, okay, everybody has 30 seconds to switch to a new chair. And you go, starting now. And then you count it down, you're watching it on the clock, and they're like, oh, I really was supposed to have a different chair. She wasn't kidding. Okay, what have I got? There's a stool right here. I can grab it, and I could stand on it. Okay. Anyway, I was a part of a group of charter school administrators in Wisconsin, and there was a charter school in Wisconsin that was an elementary school. All the kids sat on those yoga balls during class all day. That's what they had. And so you can also recommend that to a parent. If you know that one of your students is kinesthetic and he's having a hard time sitting, And I hope you're talking to the parents and you're like a team with the parents, you and the student and the parent. Recommend a yoga ball for them to sit on, because that movement of constantly keeping themselves in balance, hopefully don't let it distract you, but know that it's really good for the kinesthetic learner to be constantly moving, even those little tiny movements to keep their balance on the ball. It's really great. Okay, contests between the classmates. We kind of talked about how to address that a little bit, but you can also set those up so that the class is doing that as a team outside of class, and then they can get together in their own online room and do some brainstorming or come up with some project thing and then come back to class and report back to class with the teams, okay? Drawing is very kinesthetic. So if you ask them to draw out what they see, whatever you've just explained to them, ask them to go ahead and draw a visual of it and then hold it up to the camera so that you can see it, so that you know that they've done it. And any kind of real life examples works really well. Okay, verbal learning. So verbal learners do really well again with shares. So we talked about that a little bit already with, you've got partner share and audience share, so full classroom or just one-on-one. Brainstorming with a group or with the whole class is really, really good for them. They're verbal processors a lot of times, so when they talk, ideas come out that they didn't know were there. Okay, so it's a little crazy, but the idea's stuck in their brain and they can't see it, and they don't know what it is until it comes out their mouths. It's so cool. It's wild. So you have to give them the chance to talk or they won't discover what's in there. Okay, so give them a chance to talk. Singing, you can do this online. It's a little bit funny because when you're doing it online in an online platform, a good online platform is going to actually mute everyone else and only have one microphone at a time coming through. Even if everybody's unmuted, you can only hear one person. And it's tough, but you'll be able to see everybody's mouth moving. So again, I would only do it for like a minute and a half kind of an activity, but it can be really goofy and really fun. And you'll be able to see, and you'll be like, hey, if I can't hear you, you just tell them. If I can't hear you, then you're going to sing a solo or whatever you want to do to hold them accountable. And I'm just kind of half joking there, but get them up and they can stand up and they can start singing with the whole class. And anyway, it'll help them remember stuff. Mingle time is really good, and I really recommend in an online platform, if you've had a group that's been live and been really good friends and now they're forced to be separated, if you can build in at the end of class, after your inspiring close, 15 minutes of time for them to just talk in the chat and mingle with each other and say hi and stuff like that, that can really go a long way to making them feel like they're still connected. And that's also something that's really important for interpersonal, so we'll talk about that in a minute. Gold nugget shares. So you do the lecture and you say, hey, after this, I'm going to want to hear from everybody what you learned, like one thing. And so you finish the lecture and then you ask everybody in the class to share one gold nugget thing with you. Any kind of celebration where you're getting excited and talking through stuff is really important. Question boxes and question times work really well for verbal learners. Tongue twisters are fun. Reader's theater can be done online. So you can hand out the scripts before class and say, hey, will you be person one? Will you be person two? That kind of thing. And they can do it online. You mute everybody except for the Reader's theater participants. And if it's a little loud, just ask them to speak up. You know, we've got this stuff going on in the background. It's okay. Just work through it. Any kind of new vocabulary also is fabulous. Okay, number 6, tactile learning. Okay, so anything that they can touch is really, really great. Now, some of that, it's a lot easier to do that in a classroom, but we usually skip this one in a classroom. Like very rarely do I see classroom experiences include tactile learning. So you're going to learn how to do this online and you're going to practice it. And then when you get back into the classroom, you're going to be like rocking it. Like just have everybody do it. Okay, everybody high five the camera. And it's something that they just touched. They just touched the camera, okay? And they had to move, so it's kinesthetic as well. Encouraging taking notes because they can feel the pencil or the pen. If you ask them to bring 3 different types of writing instruments to class, then they can switch between. So maybe it's a highlighter and a pen and a pencil, or 2 different types of pens or whatever, and it changes the feel that they've got. Drawing diagrams. So it's a little bit like kinesthetic in that moving their hand on the paper with the pen and touching things and moving is very helpful to them. Any kind of practice is awesome. Group experiences work really well for them. So they can practice in the online format or they can practice at home. both of those things are going to work, whether it's in the classroom at the moment or you give them an assignment for practicing outside of the classroom. Role play works really well for tactile learners. And you can do role play as well. So if you give them a situation and you ask two people to unmute themselves and everybody else mutes, and those two people act out a situation to the camera, right? You can still do that, and it will work for tactile learners. Out of chair experiences, so getting them up and out of their chair, which means they've had to push and touch the chair and move it away, and now they're standing and maybe they're touching the desk or touching the wall or whatever, but they're just changing what's around them and what's physically touching their body. Any kind of physical involvement is great. Get them up and have them do a couple jumping jacks. They can do that in front of the camera. Or have them play charades in front of the camera. That can be the activity, and that's great for all kinds of learners. There's a whole bunch of different types of learners you can check off with something like that. Model building. So if you ask them to have Play-Doh available at class when it gets to class time, and you have them, first of all, they'll be touching it probably and fidgeting with it during class when they're not taking notes and stuff, which is actually really good for them. The other thing is that when it comes time to actually do something with the Play-Doh or the clay, you can have them show it, you know, to the camera. So that's the accountability there. And you ask them to build something. If they don't have Play-Doh in your house, I would just send them also with the instructions of please have Play-Doh or clay available, like 1 cup worth or whatever, during class, and you can send them with a really simple recipe, flour and salt and whatever, and make this right before class and have it available. You can do that. Okay, virtual field trips are helpful. A portfolio of the projects that they've worked on. So just the fact of putting that all together and coming up with stuff and cutting it out and putting it in page protectors or whatever it is that they're going to do, they've got their hands on their work. And that's very satisfying to a tactile learner. So that's awesome. So you're just thinking out of the box here, right, guys? Oops. Okay, so number 7 is social learning, intrapersonal and interpersonal. Breaks are another thing that's really, really good for this. So if the kinesthetic learners are going outside, maybe the interpersonals are chatting in the chat box for that amount of time, and you can let them chat whatever they want for 5 minutes or whatever. So, or you can do it so, okay, today's going to be a kinesthetic break, and next week's going to be a interpersonal break. You can decide how to handle that, or maybe there's 2 breaks during class. Remember that this sitting time in front of the camera is going to be harder for them than sitting in the classroom. Okay, so you might need more breaks. Sharing time is great for interpersonal. Anytime that they can hear how something is working for somebody else, they will also internalize that and reflect it against their own experience, and they will learn from that. It's huge. So belonging experiences where you make them feel part of a team or feel part of the class in general, and connecting with others, that's huge for interpersonal. Small group shares and large group shares, just, again, being able to share what they're learning and hear what other people are learning makes that connection with those interpersonal people. Examples are huge. Games are great, and you can do games online. There's a lot of fun things you can do online with the chat box, using the raise hands feature. You can, like I said, again, ask kids to come to class with Play-Doh, with dice, with 3x5 cards, or anything that you might need them to have to be able to participate in class that's really simple that they might have around the house. Sharing stories about others in the group. So if you have them do a partner share and then they come to class and they share what their partner learned, then they're hearing how their partner took that information in and how it affected them, and they're putting it through their own filter, and then it's coming back out to the rest of the class. That's very powerful for an interpersonal person. Okay. Peer review, where they're seeing what their peers are thinking about what they did, is huge and works really well for interpersonal. It's very motivating to them. Also, masterminding together with a group is very impactful. And again, you can use the breakout session, you can use the phone, you can have them do it in between classes and report back at the next class. And any kind of problem solving, they really, really have a lot of fun with that. So, okay, so that was our number 7. So I just want to share with you guys that, oh wait, I want to share with you the links. So those will be down below here. There's going to be the link to the PDF, and there's also going to be the link to the Personality Max, which is the free online. You'll figure out what learning styles you are, and you might actually ask your students to do it too, so that you know what they need for their class. I want you guys to know that I am just so excited about this challenge. Like, it is so fun to be able to do something new, and you guys are amazing for everything that you do, and your willingness to step up to this and try to be the best teacher that you can be, so that these kids can still have an amazing experience, even though things are very different in their lives. So show them how much you care about them by putting the time and energy into their class that will help them really focus and engage during that time, and know that your group is still connected and still cares about their education, and that you guys are going to continue no matter what. That is an example to them right there that shows them how important their education is to the people around them, and that'll help them value it even more. So I want you to just make sure to always debrief your classes. Okay, so after you get off, I want you to share with your co-mentor, talk about what went well, what didn't go well, how you can make things better in the future, and then plan for the next class real quick, okay? And I want you to know that very simple steps, taking the time to do these things, will create amazing results for you and for your students. Okay, good luck, have a great day.